Hello, everyone. My name is Amit Jotwani. I am Alexa AI and Machine Learning Evangelist. I'm based out of New York, and I'm really excited to give you all a quick rundown of how you can build voice-enabled experiences by using Amazon Alexa. So without further ado, let's jump in. I will give you a quick rundown of what Alexa is and how you can build stuff, and then we'll actually jump right in and build a skill. So you will get hands-on experience of how you can actually build stuff with Alexa. So we launched just to give you a background of the history, we launched the Amazon Echo back in 2014, and the vision really was to build a Star Trek kind of computer where you can just talk to this device and it responds back in an intelligent fashion. And so we launched that in 2014, and since then we've launched more devices, from a mini version of the Echo, which is the Echo Dot, and then we also have the Amazon Tap, which you can see second from right in this slide. And the difference between the Amazon Tap and the Echo is really that Echo is what we call a far-field device, which means that you can just say the magic word Alexa and then say what your ask may be, and then Alexa responds back with that. And Amazon Tap is really what we call a push-to-talk device, which means that you push and push the microphone button on the device, and then you can talk to Alexa. And at that point, it responds back in pretty much the same fashion that an Echo or an Echo Dot would. And since then, we've also, you can actually use Alexa on the Fire tablets and the Fire TV and the Fire TV stick as well. So all of these devices are powered by what we call Alexa, which is the cloud-based voice service that is powering all of these devices. So if you think about it, Echo was really the first endpoint to all of these, to the service. And now we have started adding more devices to it. But all of the intelligence, the speech recognition, understanding what the user said is all happening in the cloud. And since it's living in the cloud, it's obviously getting smarter. It's learning from your speech preferences, from your accents, and it continues to get better at that. So some of the things that you can actually do with Alexa includes you can ask for music, you can ask for music by artists or albums. You can do a lot of smart home integration, so you can include some Philips Hue bulbs and some Vimo switches, and you can control your lights and garage doors and things like that. You can also build your own skills, and that's why we are here. So when we first launched, Alexa had limited capabilities. So you could ask for music, some weather, and some jokes, of course. But since then, we've launched what we call the Alexa Skills Kit, and we'll see more of that in action today. But that allows you as developers to build more capabilities for Alexa. So if you have some service or some idea or some product that you want to build for Alexa, you can do that today with Alexa Skills Kit. So like I said, Alexa is living in the cloud. And the speech recognition, which is really understanding, taking, so if you say something, for example, Alexa, what's the weather? It takes that phrase and then it does some speech recognition, tries to understand and breaks it down into phonemes. And that's really pretty basic. Even our phones do a pretty decent job at that. You just give it some audio utterance, and then it tries to convert that into discrete English words. And then NLU, which is natural language understanding, really takes the results from the ASR engine and then tries to figure out what was the user trying to do with it. So if I say, Alexa, what's the weather? It tries to figure out what the intent really was, which in this case is I'm trying to find out what the weather is. And then it passes it on to whatever skill or capability it needs to be transferred over to, and then you get the result back. So there are really two sides to the Alexa service. One is the Alexa Skills Kit, which is that you can actually build skills for Alexa. But then there's also the other side, which is the Alexa voice service. And that is if you are trying to build a device, you are a device manufacturer or you are a maker, and you want to integrate Alexa into your own product, you can do that today by using Alexa voice service. So we have integrations. We have announced integrations with Ford, so you could be driving in your car and you could talk to Alexa. All it really needs is a microphone, a speaker, and some kind of internet connection, and you can enable Alexa voice service into your product. And both of these SDKs are completely free to use. There's no royalty, there's no cost to it. So if you want to start using either of these, you can do that today. Well, one of the really exciting projects that we have on GitHub is for Alexa voice service, which is you can use a Raspberry Pi and you can build your own Echo. And we have step-by-step instructions for that. So if that's something you fancy, I would say go to github.com/Alexa, and you will see a project called Raspberry Pi, Alexa voice service Raspberry Pi. So totally check that out. So let's look at some of the skills that have been built using Alexa Skills Kit. And like I said, when we first launched, Alexa had limited capabilities. But since we announced the Alexa Skills Kit, we have skills like Lyft and Uber. So you can just ask Alexa to get you a ride. You can ask Alexa for information about your Capital One account. And then also, you can ask Alexa to get your Starbucks order ready. So all of these skills became possible after developers had their hands at the Alexa Skills Kit. And all of your skills, so when you first get an Echo or an Alexa device, you go into the Alexa app, which you can download from on iOS and Android. But you can also access that by going to a browser and going to alexa.amazon.com. So what this app really does is it helps you set up the device when you first get the device and any settings related to the device, but you can also access all of the skills that are available on to be enabled by Alexa. And you can search for your skills. So if you build a skill and you publish that skill, your skill becomes available to everybody else, and they can just go to the Alexa app and they can search for your skill and then start using that skill. So here are a few resources if you guys want to take a screenshot of this. I'll have this slide up again, but these are some of the URLs and resources that we'll be using today. So if you want to take a screenshot of this, this is really everything that you would need to get started with Alexa Skills Kit. Okay, so what we'll do now is we will build a skill using a template. So we'll start off with a template to build a very simple skill, and then we will make some changes. We will customize it, and then hopefully leave you inspired enough because you will hopefully get a basic understanding, and then you can build your own skills on top of it. And we have plenty of templates. We have templates and guides available on our GitHub page, so you can have that as well. So what we will do is we will create a skill for facts. It will be a very simple skill. It'll just give you a random fact about something. So the way we will do that is by saying Alexa open space facts, for example, where Alexa is really the wake word. So if you want to ask Alexa to do something, you say the wake word, which is Alexa. And at that point, the microphone opens up and it starts listening to what you want her to do. And then open is what we call the starting phrase. So that's how Alexa figures out that you want to launch something. So this could be open or ask or tell or launch. And then finally you have space facts, which in this case could be the invocation name of the skill. So that's how Alexa figures out that this specific skill needs to be invoked. All right, so that's enough of talking. Let's actually build through this, and I am going to jump over into my browser. Oops. Okay. Okay, so hopefully you can see my screen here, which is developer.amazon.com. And one of the first things I'm going to do is, so there's really two parts to creating the Alexa skill. One is that we'll do some stuff on developer.amazon.com, and then we will go into AWS and create the backend for it. So let's just run through the first part, which is add a new skill. And let me actually go back into my PowerPoint and run through a few more. Okay, so there's really two sides to an Alexa skill, a front end and a back end. And this is very similar to if you guys are familiar with building a mobile app or a web app, there is a front end and a back end. So in Alexa's case, the front end is what we call the voice user interface, which is really what the interaction model should look like. What will the user say, and what and how should Alexa respond back? And then the second piece would be the programming logic. What should happen, or what kind of facts should be returned when we ask Alexa for a space fact, for example. Now, the voice user interface is built on developer.amazon.com, and the backend is on aws.amazon.com. Now, AWS is a cloud service, cloud computing service from Amazon, and one of the microservices, or one of the services that's available, is AWS Lambda, which allows you to create these functions and run functions on the cloud without really worrying about maintaining or managing those servers. And that function just gets triggered when some event happens. And in our case, that event is going to be when your users try to talk to Alexa. That's going to be the trigger point for the Lambda function. So the first step is going to be creating the voice user interface, and we'll do that on developer.amazon.com. The second piece is going to be building the Lambda function, and then we will connect the Lambda function to the voice user interface, and then we will go and test it, make some changes, customize it, and then once you feel comfortable with your skill, you can actually publish that. And like I said, we have plenty of templates. So if you go to github.com/Alexa, you can get access to all of these templates. You can use them as a starting point, customize it, learn. So you can use it from an educational point of view, but also as a quick start to get your skill up and ready and published. And if you run into any skill, you may find some skills on the web. And the general structure that these projects follow is you will have two directories. One will be speech assets, and the other one would be the source. Now, anything that's inside the speech assets will go into developer.amazon.com, and we will see this in action right now. And then anything inside the source directory will go into index.js, which is going to go into your Lambda function. So this is, for example, if you go to alexa.design/fact, it'll point you to this fact template that we have on GitHub. Sorry? You have to switch the screen back to the oh, all right. All right, sorry about that. Let me just run through. We didn't go that far, so let me just go back and run through this. Okay, so two sides to an Alexa skill, front end and back end. The front end is the voice user interface, and the back end is the programming logic. The voice user interface is done on developer.amazon.com, and the back end is done on aws.amazon.com. And AWS is where we will create a Lambda function which will get triggered off when our users are talking to Alexa. So as a quick walkthrough, we will first build the voice user interface. Then we will build the Lambda function. And then we will connect the two so the front end knows how to interact with the back end. And then finally, we will test it and do some customization. And then we are ready to publish it once we feel that this is good to go. We have plenty of templates on github.com/Alexa. They generally follow a structure. So if you see a template Anything that's inside the speech assets directory is meant to go into developer.amazon.com. It's part of your voice user interface. And then anything that's inside the source directory is your backend and should go into the AWS Lambda function. Here's a sample template that we have, screenshot of the fact template. So you can see that there's a speech assets directory and there's a source directory. And there's obviously a README file next to it. So at this point, we are ready to jump in. I am going to switch over to my browser and I will open 3 tabs. The first one will be developer.amazon.com. The second is aws.amazon.com. And the third one is going to be github.com/Alexa, where I'm going to start off with the template. So at this point, let me switch over. And let's make sure I am actually showing you the browser for real. Okay, so I have 3 tabs open here. The first one is developer.amazon.com. I am signed into my Amazon account. And I will click on Alexa. And when you do that, you will get 2 options here. The first one is Alexa Skills Kit, and the other one is Alexa Voice Service. So remember, Alexa Skills Kit is what we'll be using now to create new capabilities for Alexa. But if you're trying to build a hardware or a device using Alexa, you would click on Alexa Voice Service. So I'm going to click on Alexa Skills Kit, and it brings me to this list of skills that I have. Now, if you're starting this for the first time, you will probably not have any skills here. Either way, we'll click on Add a New Skill on the right side of the screen, the yellow button. Now, it's going to walk me through some steps. So you can see the steps on the left side of the screen. You have skill information, interaction model, and all these other things. So let's just start walking through that. The first thing it's looking for is you have 3 options. You can choose between a skill type. The first one is custom interaction model, which is what we'll be using now. The second option is Smart Home Skill API. So if you have some devices that need Alexa integration, for example, turning lights on or off, you have a switch, you can actually use the Smart Home Skill API to build those kinds of interactions. If we have some capabilities built into it, so you don't have to build everything from scratch. And then finally, you have the Flash Briefing Skill API, which really takes our RSS feed and it converts that into a flash briefing. So when you ask Alexa for news, your skill could be part of that. So like I said, in this case, we'll be using the custom interaction model. The first thing it's looking for is the name. Now, we will call our skill Flatiron School. Now, the name could be anything. It could be more descriptive. And this name is what will show up if you're in the skill store. So when people search for your skill, that's the name that they will see on the store. And then the second thing is the invocation name. Now this is important because this is what the users will say when they want to use your skill. So this needs to be something that's easy to say. So let's call it Flatiron School here as well. And you have an option to include the audio player API. So if your skill is going to be using any audio, MP3 playback, and things like that, we have some built-in directives or built-in APIs that you can use. Our skill is not going to have that, so I'm just going to let it be as no, and I'm going to click on. Guys, we're having some technical issues, but we are back on. So if you're still around, it's going to be worth it. Trust me. Okay, so I am going to start from the start. Let's click on Add a New Skill. I will name it Flatiron School. The invocation name is also going to be Flatiron School, if I can spell it right. And no audio player, save. Oh, the skill already exists. Did it actually create the skill? Let's see. Oh, it did. Okay. So let's click on that. Yes. Okay. So we did that part. We are ready for step number 2. Click on Next. Now, this is where it's looking for the interaction model. Now, the interaction model really is made up of what we call the intent schema. Now, intent schema is really a JSON object or JSON blurb that tells Alexa what features this specific skill has. So let's jump over to github.com/Alexa, and so that's github.com/Alexa, and we have a bunch of templates here. So I'm going to search for fact and click on skill sample Node.js fact. And as you can see, I'm going to go into my speech assets. So remember, speech assets includes everything that should go into developer.amazon.com. You will see a bunch of files here. The first one is intentschema.json. I'm going to click on that, and it includes this JSON object. I'm going to click on raw, just so it's easier for me to copy paste that, and copy this, come back into our skill builder, and paste that here. So let's go through this. What is included here? Now it includes, as you can see, it includes a bunch of intents here. So it's a key value pair, and the first one is get new fact intent, and the second one is Amazon.help intent, and then you have a few more Amazon built-in intents. So the first one is the intent that we will be building from scratch. So that really is telling Alexa that you have 4 features or 4 functionalities or 4 behaviors for this skill. The first one is get new fact intent, which is really going to get a random fact. And then, as you would expect, every skill that we have on Alexa should have some way for the user to stop, cancel, or ask for help. So these are some intents that every skill should have, and these are built-in intents, so you don't have to worry about building these from scratch. So we'll just use the built-in intents that Amazon provides. And then the second part here is the slots. Now you can also include some arguments or parameters. So instead of saying that, oh, Alexa, give me a fact, you can also say, Alexa, give me a fact about planet Earth, where planet Earth would be an argument that you're passing to Alexa. So we'll just skip that for now and come to the third part, which is the sample utterances. Now, these are some sample phrases that you expect users might say to get the facts. So let's go back to github.com. I'm going to go back into our speech assets directory. And as you can see, we have sample utterances in 3 languages. Now, Alexa supports US English, British English, and it also supports German. So depending on which locale you want to build for, I'm going to click on English US and click on raw, just so it's easier to copy, and bring it back into our sample utterances box here. So what's happening here is every line here is starting off with the intent name. Now this intent name actually matches up with the intent that we defined as part of the intent schema. So what the sample utterances are really saying is, if anybody says a fact, a space fact, tell me a fact, or any of these phrases, they all match up to the same intent. So if I say, tell me a fact, it will fire off this specific intent. And this intent name, as you will see, will match up to the function name that we will define on our backend. So if you have more than one functionality, you would just add more sample utterance and match it up to that specific intent. So we'll just keep it simple for now. This is going to be our interaction model. I'm going to click on save. Now, while this is getting built, we can jump over to configuration. That's the third step. Now, this is where we will do the connection to the backend. So what it's looking for is a URL to the endpoint where our backend code is sitting. Now, you have 2 options here. One is the AWS Lambda, and the other one is choosing any HTTPS endpoint. We will be using Lambda, but you can use any other HTTPS endpoint. So if you have your own server or you have any other way of providing an endpoint that's sitting, or the requirement really is that it needs to be accessible through the internet, and it needs to be an HTTPS connection. So we'll just use AWS here, and at this point it's looking for the ARN, which will be provided by our Lambda function. So we are ready for the second tab. So I'm going to jump over into aws.amazon.com. Now, if you don't have an AWS account, you can create that for free. I already have an account, so I am going to go in. So this is the home screen that you will see when you log into AWS. I'm going to click on Lambda, which is one of the services. And you will see a list of functions. Again, if this is the first time you're doing it, you will not see anything here. And we'll click on Create a Lambda function, the blue button. Now, you can either create a function from scratch with a blank function, or you can pick up a template or a blueprint to start off. So we will use a blueprint to kick things off here. I'm going to filter it out by fact. And the template that we'll be using is the Alexa Skills Kit SDK fact skill. Now, it'll get us started off with some code. The next thing it's looking for is some way to trigger the Lambda function. So like I said, in our case, the trigger point is going to be Alexa. So we will choose Alexa Skills Kit as the trigger that will fire off the Lambda function. So I'm going to click Next here. And now it's looking for the code. So let's name our function Flatiron School Skill. And I will be using Node.js for this, but you can use Python, you can use Java. So if you have a language of choice, you can pick that up from here. We'll just keep it as Node.js. And for the code, I am going to jump back into our GitHub. And this time, I'm going to go into the source directory instead of speech assets, because anything that's inside source goes into your backend. So you will see a file called index.js. I'm going to click on that. Again, clicking on raw, selecting all, copying it, bringing it back into Lambda, and I'm going to delete everything that's inside this box and then paste our code here. And then I'm going to scroll down and provide it the right permission. So our Lambda function needs the right permissions to be fired off. I am going to choose create a custom role. It's going to open a new tab for me. And I'm going to choose Lambda basic execution and click on allow. So we are back on the same screen now. We have everything set. I'm going to click on next. Just review the things and create function. Okay, so we have the function created, and what we are looking for now is this ARN. So I'm going to copy this ARN right from the word ARN right till the end of it. So let's try this again. Okay.
Could you review what you just did? We're getting a couple of comments and people are...
Go back, do it again? Yeah, sure. Okay, so let's just go through this one more time. I am going to go into my functions. This is the skill we just created. Let's click on that. Okay. So what we did was, when you first launched the skill, actually, you know what? Let's just do this one more time, just so everybody is on the same page. I think we have time. And let's just delete this so we can call it the same thing again. Okay. So I'm going to click on create a Lambda function, and we will filter it out by fact. And I'm going to click on Alexa SkillsKit SDK fact skill and choose Alexa SkillsKit as the trigger, and then click on next. Now I'm going to name my function. This could be any name, it doesn't matter, no one's going to see this. Let's call it Flatiron School Skill, and select Node.js. Now for the code here, I'm going to delete this. And the reason we even started off with a fact skill or one of the template blueprints is that it includes the SDK, the Alexa SkillsKit SDK that is required for these functions. So you can build this from scratch, but it's easier to start off this way because then you don't have to worry about including the Alexa libraries on your code. So to get the code, I'm going to jump over to GitHub. Again, back to our Node.js fact template and go into source and find the file index.js and click on raw and copy the whole thing. Go back into my Lambda function and paste that into this box here. And then I'm going to scroll down a little bit and make sure our Lambda function has the right permissions to be fired off. And in this case, I'm going to create a custom role. It's going to open a new tab, and all we have to do is click allow on the bottom right. So if you don't have the window all expanded, you may not see this button here. So make sure you are in full screen, or you may not see this. So click allow here and click on next. So it's just showing you or reviewing all the information here. I'm going to click on create function. And we are ready. So now what we really need is this ARN. ARN stands for Amazon Resource Name. This is this unique ID that you need to connect back to your skills. So at this point, let's jump back into developer.amazon.com. It's waiting for our ARN. So under North America, I am going to paste this. Now, one of the things that I should mention is if you're trying to create a Lambda function and you don't see Alexa SkillsKit, make sure that you are in the Northern Virginia zone here. So if you want to serve Alexa, you have two options. You can either serve it through Northern Virginia data center, or you can pick up the Ireland if you are in Europe.
Someone is asking about creating a Lambda function. Just saying she can't create a Lambda function. She can access the directory.
She can access the directory on Lambda.
Yes.
Okay, let's just take these questions and we can respond back.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so we are back here. I've pasted my ARN here. You have a few more options which we will ignore for now, but it's good to know. Account linking is one way that you can actually provide your users to log into your web service. So say you have a web service, you have a user authentication system on it, and you want to be able to connect your skill to it. So now when people enable your skill, you have their information available through the skill. So we'll just use no here. Your skill can also request device address, which would be the full address of the users, or the postal code. Your skill can also access the lists, which is to-do lists. So if you want to access those, you will check all of these, and then Alexa will handle, will make sure that the users know that you're looking for device address, or you need permissions to access the lists. We'll just ignore these for now, and then click on next. Okay, so at this point, we are ready. You see all these 4 check marks on the left side, and we are on the test mode now. So there are a couple of things that you can do now. The first one is the voice simulator, where you can actually type something and to figure out how Alexa will actually say it. Now this is pretty useful. You don't have to push code every time. You can just say, hello, Flatiron School, and you can click on listen. I'm not sure if you will get the audio, but if you do this on your computer, you will actually hear Alexa talk back.
Hello, Flatiron School.
Hopefully you heard that. And then one of the cool things you can also do is Alexa supports what we call SSML, which is speech synthesis markup language, which is one way that you can actually do things like this.
HELLO.
So instead of her saying hello, we had her spell it out. And there are a bunch of options. So if you click on this link over here, learn more about supported SSML tags, you can actually you can include all of that into your skill and have her do different kinds of things. But most importantly, we are more interested in the service simulator. So the service simulator really takes a bunch of text and then responds back in JSON. So let's see what's going on here. I am going to say launch Flatiron School. Now remember that's the name, the invocation name of our skill. And I am going to click on Ask Flatiron School button. And we see something just happened. So the first one on the left is a request. Now this is the JSON request that was sent off to our Lambda function. And then our Lambda function responded with this. So if you click on listen, you will actually hear a fact.
Here's your fact. Earth is the only planet not named after a god.
Right? So what happened is the JSON on the left was sent by Alexa. So you can see that there's a request. And the type of the request was launch request. And then on the right side, you will see that some response was sent. And one of the things that was sent back is the output speech. And within output speech was the text for your fact. Here's your fact. Earth is the only planet not named after a god. And then there's also a card. Now, you can also, as part of your skill, you can also send some more information back to your users through what is called the Alexa card. So any information that you want to send off to the Alexa card shows up on the Alexa app. So remember, everyone who first starts using Alexa on their Echo device or the Tap or any other Alexa device, they do that using the Alexa app, and you can send off some more information. So say if you ask for weather, she will tell you the weather is nice and bright in New York, but she will also send some icons or some more information about the weather to the Alexa app. Okay, so that's that. We know that it's working here, but let's actually give it a shot on the device itself. So I have the Amazon Tap with me here, and I'm going to ask her to open Flatiron School, and let's see if we are able to get it to work here. Open Flatiron School.
Here's your fact. A total solar eclipse can happen once every 1 to 2 years. This makes them a rare event.
All right, we got a fact back. Let's try one more. Alexa, ask Flatiron School for another fact.
Here's your fact. A total solar eclipse can happen once every 1 to 2 years. This makes them a rare event.
All right, so we got some facts coming back. Now let's see how this is actually working. So to do that, I'm going to jump back into our code. Now here's the Flatiron School. Okay, so what we really did was we are first setting up a few variables here with a goodbye message or the name of the skill, and these variables we'll just use in our skill later on. But this is really just setting up some basic variables. And then this is where we are setting up the data for it. Now this data could be replaced with anything else. So If I go back into my functions, sorry. Now this could be any data that you may have. And then finally, remember, we created an intent called get new fact intent. Now, when we asked Alexa for a fact, that fact got fired off. And it came inside this function where we are really generating a random number using math.floor function. And we pass it on to the speech output variable. And the speech output variable is really generating the fact message along with that random fact. But the key thing that's happening in this skill is in line number 48, where it's using a keyword called emit, which is part of the Alexa SDK. And the first parameter that we pass it is tell with card. Now, it could either be an ask or a tell with card. Now, the tell with card will basically take the speech output that we just generated. It'll take the skill name and the random fact that we've just passed it on. And then we also have the help intent and the cancel intents and the stop intent. And this is pretty basic. All we are doing in the cancel intent, for example, is that we are saying pass it on the stop message which we defined earlier in here, which is goodbye. Now, the difference between ask and tell is that ask opens up the microphone for the user to respond back, and tell is really just you give Alexa just responds back and closes the session. There's no expectation from the user to respond back with anything. So let's jump over into my PowerPoint and run through what actually just happened. So one of the other things that you can do if you don't have access to a device and you don't want to do this on the simulator, you can also do this on the browser-based simulator that we have. So you can go into echosim.io and log in using Amazon. Okay. And it's thinking. Here we go. All right. So you can press this button here, push and hold this microphone button or the space button on a keyboard, and it'll replicate the echo function behavior. So let's try this here. Open Flatiron School.
Here's your fact. Venus rotates counterclockwise, possibly because of a collision in the past with an asteroid.
All right, so that's another way that you can actually test Alexa skills. Let's go back into our PowerPoint now and make sure you guys can see this. Okay, and let's go back into full screen. Okay, so you can use echosim.io. Let's see. Can you see the screen now? Okay, let's see if I can go back into slideshow mode. Okay, all right. We'll just not do the slideshow mode. Okay, so echosim is another way that you can actually do that. Now let's see. You can see the screen? Oh, that's weird. How about now? Can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so when we said Alexa open Flatiron facts, basically she took on the invocation name and then she found that skill and reacted based on that. Now in this case, you could add another utterance to it. So instead of just saying open space facts, you could have said ask space facts for trivia, where for trivia is really the utterance for it. You could also say tell me something, give me information, a fact, give me trivia, or any other phrase that you think your users might use. So let's run through and see how it actually works. So what happens is you have the user on the left side, and you have the echo in the middle. And when we said Alexa open Flatiron School, it sends off the audio, it captures the audio on the device, and it sends off that audio to Alexa, which is in the cloud. Now, Alexa does the speech recognition and figures out that, oh, this request was meant to go to the Alexa, to this specific Flatiron School scale because we registered that invocation name for it. And it sends off that JSON request that we saw to your skill, which is sitting on the Lambda function. Now, your Lambda function figures out what is to be responded with, and then it sends off the response again in a JSON format. So which means that the response is still being sent off in text format back to Alexa, and then Alexa converts that into speech using the text-to-speech engine, which is again sitting in the cloud, and then sends off a response to the audio. The audio response goes back to your echo, and then if there is a card that the skill is also sending back, that goes back into the Alexa app that the user has installed on their phone. So for the first part, when you do speech recognition, say you say something like 40 times. Now, Alexa tries to figure out what was that, what is the meaning of that, and it converts that into really basic units called phonemes, which looks something like this. Now, the important thing here is that what was the context here? Was that 40x, 40 times? Or did that mean 4t times? Or did that mean 4 golf t times? Or was that really 4 golf t times? Now, the speech recognition really figures out that, well, I just heard 40 times. I don't know which of these was the intent. And that's where the natural language understanding comes into the picture to figure out what was the context or the intent behind that. And that is why we use the sample utterances. Because the sample utterances gives Alexa an idea and the training wheels, the training data to understand the intent. So you don't have to include every single phrase that you expect the users might say, just enough so Alexa can figure out if it was golf t times or coffee t times. And this is what our intent schema was. Remember, we copy-pasted, the first thing that we copy-pasted from GitHub was the intent schema, which is the behavior or the features your skills are going to have. And this is really an array of all the intents. And we had get new fact intent, and then we had a couple of Amazon built-in intents. So let's look at what Alexa takes as an input. The input is obviously the audio, but what comes out is the intents and the slots. So when you are building a skill, you will never see or hear what the user actually said. All you will get is our conversion, our translated version of intents and the slots. So again, going back to that chart, when user says something, we have the wake word is detected on the device, and then we convert that into utterances and intents that is sent off to your skill. Your skill responds back with the JSON, and then it's finally converted into text-to-speech on the Alexa engine, and the audio is sent back to your device. So let's look at the connection again. You have the intent schema on the left side, and then you have the sample utterances on the right. Again, these are two things that we copy-pasted from GitHub. And these are the absolute minimum requirements to build your interaction model. You will have some way of telling Alexa what the intents are, and then match them up with some of the sample phrases or utterances that the users might say. So as you can see, the connection here between the two is the name of the intent. Now, if you have more intents, you will have more intents on the left side, and you will have some matching utterances on the right side, so Alexa can figure out which specific intent should it actually go to. And then again, if we look at the request that we got back as part of the voice simulator, you will see the name of the intent matches up with the name of the intent in the intent schema and the sample utterances. So intents are really the connection that is happening between the intent schema, the sample utterances, and even the code. The code that you will see get new fact intent matches up with the intent name that we had in the intent schema and the sample utterances. And like I said, Amazon provides you a bunch of built-in intents. The cancel, help, and stop are required. So when you first publish your skill, it goes through review, and if you need to have these 3 intents as part of your skill to be able to pass that certification. And some of the other intents that Amazon has is next, no, repeat, yes, shuffle. So anything, if you're expecting your users might respond back with a yes or a no, and different versions of that. For example, instead of just saying yes, some user might say yes, sign me up, things like that. Alexa can actually translate that into the Amazon.yes intent. So if you are having that, you should use some of these built-in intents as well. Now let's see what happens. How are you actually communicating with your endpoint, which in our case was AWS Lambda. Now, like I said, it needs to be internet accessible, and it needs to be HTTPS over SSL connection. So as long as your endpoint is satisfying those criteria, you can use that as your backend or endpoint. Now let's look at what when your Alexa skill was fired off, it sent off a request to your endpoint, and this is what the request, the sample request, looks like. So you had the session, and then within that session you have some session ID and some relevant information about your skill. You also have a unique user ID, but the important thing here for us to look at is the request. Now within request you have launch request. So when user first launches your skill by saying open skill name or launch skill name or ask or tell, it launches the launch request. So if you want a welcome message to be included, you would do that into the launch request function in your Lambda function. And then when you're responding via the response, you will see an output speech, a card, which is an optional response that you want to send back to the card. If you want some kind of reprompt to be included, so if user does not respond or responds back with something that your skill did not understand, you can include a reprompt. So Alexa will reprompt once with that message, and if the user responds back, then your skill can act accordingly. If not, the session ends then. And then should end session is a key that you can include if you want to continue to keep your session open because you're expecting users might respond with something, or you want to force the session to be ended. You can just say should end session false, or should end session true rather. So let's quickly look at the other types of requests that we have. So like I said, the first one is launch request. When you say Alexa open SpaceFacts or open Flatiron School, it launches it fires off the launch request. When you say exit, it fires off the session ended request. And then the third special type of intent is the intent request. So if the user says a very specific thing that your skill understood and knows how to act on, it will pass on the intent request. In our case, this intent request will have the name as get new fact intent. So when we said Alexa ask open Flatiron School for a fact, it knew exactly the intent it needed to be matched to because we had that phrase included in our sample utterances. And then quickly, the SDK gives you some built-in ways, so you don't have to do everything from scratch. So if you want Alexa to respond back with something and then end the session, you will just say tell. You will say this.emit and then tell, and then the text that you want her to speak back. And then if you want to keep the conversation open, you would use ask. And both of these can be used with the card option as well. So you will instead of saying just tell, you can say tell with card, and it'll send off a card response as well. And you can do the same with ask. Instead of saying just ask, you can also say ask with card, and it'll send off a card response along with the audio response. So it'll look something like this. You would say this.emit and then the verb, which is ask, and the speech output, which is what Alexa should respond back, and then reprompt with any text that you want her to use if the user did not respond back or responded with something that the skill did not understand. And then finally, some more, again, the screenshot, if you did not get a chance the first time, these are the links that you would need to get started with Alexa. GitHub.com/Alexa is really all of the templates, plenty of templates. So the fact, obviously, but we also have trivias and quiz and many other templates that you can actually use to get started with it. So you should use that not just from building a skill point of view, but also you can actually use that as an educational point. So learning new things and how people are doing certain things. And then you can also use that as a starting point and just quickly customize it. If you have some ideas for facts, for trivias or quizzes, you can just customize these templates and then push it to the store. So speaking of which, let's just jump back into the browser and walk through the final few steps so you understand what this looks like. And let's make sure you can see the screen. Okay, I am back on the screen now. So we have 4 green checks on the left side. The next step is going to be publishing information. So when you're ready with your skill, you feel happy that this is the skill that I want everyone to be using, you would just click on publishing information, fill out the basic responses, what category it is, some quick testing instructions. So this is what our reviewers will use to play around with your skill and make sure that it does what it says it does. And then some short skill description that will show up on the once your skill is published. And some example phrases. How can your users use this skill? So include things like open space facts or open Flatiron School or launch Flatiron School or any specific ways that people can start playing around with your skill. And then finally, upload some images in a small and large resolution. So once you're done with that, the final step would be privacy and compliance, where you would just say that include any privacy URLs that you may want users to have access to. And then at that point, you're ready to publish. And then once it's successfully reviewed, your skill will show up on alexa.amazon.com. So, or the Alexa app that the users may have installed on their phones. So when you go to skills, this is where you can actually see all of these skills. So let's just click on one of these. Sleep and relaxation sounds. And as you can see, this skill is enabled. I can disable this skill from here, or you can also see that these are some of the example phrases that the developer has included, and then a quick description of the skill as well. So once your skill is available, passes through the certification, it will show up and people can search for it and they can enable it, not just by from the screen, but they can also say, ask Alexa to enable those skills. All right, and then finally, let's jump back into PowerPoint. Okay, this is, I guess, the most exciting part. You can get a free Echo Dot if you build and publish an Alexa skill between June 1st and June 30th. All you really have to do is make sure that you go to bit.ly/Alexa-NYC and register for this promotion. And then once you're ready, you publish the skill and you will get an email for the further instructions. But really today, all you need to do is make sure you go to bit.ly/Alexa-NYC to just register for this promotion. And once you're ready with your skill, and again, you can start playing around with the skills by playing around with the templates that we have on github.com/Alexa. Or if you already have an idea and you want to start building around that, go for it. Once you have that published, you will get a free Echo Dot. So again, I guess take a screenshot of that if this is of interest to you. As skill developers, you would need access to a device. So if you don't already have a device, it's a great way to doing that. And if you already have a device, well, you can get another one. With that, Again, my name is Amit Jotwani. I am Alexa Evangelist. I'm based out of New York. You can get me on Twitter at Amit. If you have any questions, I think Emily will connect us, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have. If you're running into some problems, just reach me on Twitter or the contact information that Emily would be sharing, and I would love to help you out, and I can't wait to see what you guys build with this. Thank you very much, and happy hacking.